Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honour to rise in my place and participate in this budget debate. I echo the sentiments of my colleagues and congratulate you in your new role in this Assembly. Mr. Speaker, it is difficult to focus on the matters at hand when we are in the midst of such profound grief and sorrow in our province. I would like to share the eloquent words of an acquaintance of mine, Cam Fuller, who writes for the Saskatoon Star-Phoenix. Quote, "There are events in life that don't make sense, that won't ever make sense, that are outrageously unfair and unbearably cruel. There are times when fate turns, looks impassively at the vulnerable people it has forced to their knees and shrugs. It's too big to fight. There's no winning. You can't put your hand up and stop the wind blowing across a field on a frozen April day when spring and life and lives are postponed, perhaps indefinitely. And yet what we've seen in the past few days isn't resignation. It's been a collective, intuitive, immediate and heartfelt effort to make a difference regardless of the odds. Countless gestures that speak to the basic decency of people. There's no way to change what happened, and nobody thinks there is. But maybe our answer to the unfairness is to change ourselves. How much do we take each other for granted on those days when we allow ourselves to be seduced into thinking it'll last forever?" End quote. Thank you, people of Saskatchewan, for your countless gestures that speak to your basic decency, your caring, your kindness, your sense of community. I again extend my deepest sympathies to the families and friends affected by the Humboldt Broncos bus tragedy. With Mr. Fuller's words fresh in my mind, I would like to thank those individuals in my life whom I might take for granted. At the top of that list is my husband, Jim. We are heading towards our 36th wedding anniversary this July, and a girl could not ask for a more supportive and committed partner in life. He does all the grocery shopping in our household and much more. So much more that one of my nicknames by colleagues here is the Pampered MLA. Jim and I have been blessed with 3 daughters. Even more blessed, the 2 have made Saskatoon their home. Our oldest, Amy, is married to Carl, and they are parents to 3 of our grandchildren, Gianna, Isabella, and Lucas. I am grateful that they chose names for their children that are manageable to spell and pronounce. Amy has earned a Chartered Professional Accountant designation and is an auditor with Canada Revenue Agency. Carl is a journeyman mechanic. They are co-owners of Market Mall Auto Service in Saskatoon and have joined the large number of entrepreneurs across this province. Monique, our middle daughter, is mother to 16-month-old Sebastian. Monique is a lawyer and will be returning to the workforce in the near future. She is married to Aaron, who is full of entrepreneurial spirit and always planning his next adventure. Mr. Speaker, our youngest daughter, Janelle, is currently in Edmonton working for the Government of Alberta after completing a Master of Public Administration at the University of Saskatchewan. Like so many of my fellow MLAs who are grandparents here, Jim and I are enjoying the little ones, and our family circle of love continues to grow. I would like to acknowledge the work that my constituency assistant, James Hawkes, does on my behalf. We have a busy office with constituents dropping by, emailing and phoning with comments or needing assistance, and James helps me with it all. He has a solid understanding of government and how ministries work, as he spent 2 summers in this building, Mr. Speaker. He was completing a double majors degree at the U of S that included political studies at that time. I am fortunate, Mr. Speaker, to have a great group of volunteers who offer support to me as members of the Saskatoon Churchill-Wildwood Constituency Association. My association is led by Robin Mowat, who serves as our capable president. We get the work done, but we also focus on having fun along the way. The association serves as a good source of insight and advice to me on behalf of the residents of my constituency. Mr. Speaker, I would like to share something that I read in the December 2017 edition of the Reader's Digest. Different authors were asked to pen advice that they wanted to pass on to their grandchildren in the year of Canada's 150th birthday. One story that caught my attention was written by Rudy Weeb. He shares with his grandchildren that their great-grandparents, his parents, have fled from Russia in 1929 because of violent revolution and religious persecution. He could not explain how 4,000 Mennonites, including his parents and their children, were allowed to leave by train from Germany and were among a small group of 1,344 persons accepted by Canada. Rudy is the youngest of 7 children and was born on their homestead in northern Saskatchewan, where the family ended up. Quote, "My parents could never explain why they were 7 of the few who got out over Moscow, or why they were accepted as refugees by the best of all countries, Canada. Luck? They didn't believe in it. They had faith in God, in the goodness of God's mercy, in prayer, in the daily evidence of miracle. And because of that, they were thankful to God every day of their lives. My sweet grandchildren, through no effort of our own, we are blessed to live in a great nation of peace and human dignity." End quote. Mr. Speaker, I would add that we are blessed to live in a great province within a great nation. And I hope that Rudy is as proud of this province as I am, vis-a-vis the adversity we have faced in the past 10 days. There are only so many choices, Mr. Speaker, that government has when it comes to balancing a budget in the face of revenue shortfalls. Like every business in this province and every family in this province, we have to face our fiscal situation head-on and make the best choices we can for the benefit of all. We could look at tax increases, but we are not going to do that. There are no tax rate increases in this budget. Low personal and corporate income tax rates remain the same, with no increases to the education property tax or provincial sales tax rates. We could look at service reduction, but we are not going to do that either, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to deliver high-quality services for Saskatchewan people. But what we have chosen to do, and what the people of this province expect, is to control spending while keeping our economy strong and returning to balance in 2019-20. This budget supports our vision to ensure that Saskatchewan is the best place in Canada to live, to work, to start a business, to get an education, to raise a family, and to build a life. I would like to take the next few minutes to highlight some of the ways that the budget accomplishes this. There is a $2.8 million investment that will fulfill this government's commitment to provide individual funding for children with autism spectrum disorder. The initial funding of $4,000 per child under the age of 6 will be effective on July 1st of this year. This budget makes a $532,000 investment to create the Universal Newborn Hearing Screening Program to provide babies born in Saskatchewan hospitals with a screening test to support early detection of hearing loss. This government will fulfill the final commitment to the Canadian National Institute for the Blind for vision loss rehabilitation services and equipment with funding of $500,000, which represents a $250,000 increase. Supports for autism, hearing loss, and vision loss, all examples of how this government supports our vision as the best place to live and raise a family, Mr. Speaker. Our government continues to invest in supports for those most vulnerable, children in need of protection, at-risk families, people with disabilities, seniors, and those experiencing low income. We continue to help people in need. The increase of $54 million in the social services budget includes $10.4 million for community-based organizations and caregivers. $8.2 million of that will be targeted to those providing direct daily care of those with intellectual disabilities and/or mental health challenges. The remaining $2.2 million will help foster families and others providing daily care to children in need of protection, as well as families needing intensive supports. In this budget, there is an additional $700,000 for children and youth with exceptional medical and behavioral challenges, and $4.5 million for extended family members caring for at-risk children and youth. Two major hospitals in this province, the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital in Saskatoon and the Saskatchewan Hospital North Battleford, are on track to open by the end of next year. There is a continued phase-in for doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals for the Children's Hospital, and the new facility in North Battleford is a significant commitment to improve mental health. More examples, Mr. Speaker, of how this government supports our vision to ensure that Saskatchewan is the best place in Canada to live, to raise a family, and to build a life. The Saskatoon Housing Corporation will launch the Seniors Education Property Tax Deferral Program this month, Approximately 1,600 low to moderate senior homeowners will be able to defer the education portion of their property taxes through a repayable loan, giving them more financial flexibility and helping them stay in their homes longer. Education in this province will see an increase of $30 million in operating funding over last year. This will allow school divisions to support students in the classroom by hiring up to 400 teachers and other education support staff. The education budget of $2.5 billion will see nearly $50 million for preventative maintenance, renewal and emergency funding, which is a 14.8% increase over last year. There is inclusion of the $20.8 million in new funding from the federal government through the recently signed Canada-Saskatchewan Early Learning and Childcare Agreement. This childcare funding will allow for the continued support of 16,000 licensed childcare spaces, with provision for an additional 2,500 licensed childcare spaces by 2020. This government has reaffirmed that boards of education will continue to have the responsibility to make decisions on how to allocate funding and make expenditure decisions that meet local needs. In a news release from the Saskatchewan School Boards Association, Dr. Davidson, president of the SSBI, said, and I quote, "The boards see the efforts made this year to reprioritize funding for education is critical to supporting continued progress in the area of student achievement." End quote. I am excited that student financial literacy has been added to the provincial K-12 curricula. I brought forward this resolution to the SSBA when I was a trustee. Little did I know that one day I would be including this as part of my recommendations as Legislative Secretary for Curriculum Development and Consultation to the Minister of Education. I am hopeful that financial literacy will help to mitigate the growing levels of personal debt in our country. I am also hopeful that it will assist the future entrepreneurs of this province as we provide a financial foundation of knowledge for our students as they graduate from our schools. This is supporting our vision that Saskatchewan is the best place in Canada to get an education. As part of this year's budget, there is an additional $250,000 being allocated to the Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership, which will be targeted to programs that directly support the efforts of Saskatchewan exporters to increase activity in both new and existing markets. More than 100,000 jobs in this province depend on exports. We need to protect those jobs and expand our access to export markets around the world to create new jobs. We export more per capita in this province than any other. We export energy products, agricultural products such as meat and grain, forestry products, mining products, and manufactured goods. We export those products to about 150 countries all around the world. We will continue to take steps to increase the value of all these exports so that we can continue to grow the opportunities for jobs in our communities. As we increase our export wealth, we will enhance our population growth as well. This government is introducing the Saskatchewan Value-Added Agriculture Incentive to help foster a competitive business environment in the province and improve investment in traction and retention outcomes. The SVAI creates a 15% non-refundable tax credit for new or existing agriculture facilities that make a minimal capital investment of $10 million to expand productive capacity. This budget announces the creation of the Saskatchewan Technology Startup Incentive, a 2-year pilot project that provides a tax credit of 45% to be applied to investments made in eligible Saskatchewan-based corporations. This incentive will create conditions for the continued rapid growth and success of newly emerging technology companies. The tech sector is the fastest growing sector on the TSX, and we plan to be a major player in this burgeoning sector as we introduce the most aggressive investor tax credit for tech startups in Western Canada. Doug Conkin, chair of the Saskatchewan Capital Network, stated, and I quote, "We are confident that this tax credit will give more people the incentive required to become investors, resulting in positive economic spin-offs for the province." End quote. Woman entrepreneurs Saskatchewan CEO Prabha Mitchell is quoted as saying, quote, "Not only will this new tax rebate foster entrepreneurship and innovation in Saskatchewan, it will undoubtedly lead to a more diverse economy and the creation of new jobs in the tech sector." End quote. These tax incentives support our vision to ensure that Saskatchewan is the best place in Canada to start a business. Mr. Speaker, one fact that I would like to note is that non-renewable resource revenue now accounts for just 10% of the province's total revenue. In 2008-2009, it accounted for a high of 32%. This is a major step forward by our government. Mr. Speaker, the members opposite have gone so far as to call small business owners and entrepreneurs elites. The NDP finance critic has stated, quote, "Professional corporations like lawyers or physicians or surgeons who don't typically have a lot of employees." Well, I was just recently at a surgeon's office and I think I counted over 10 employees, so I take exception to that. With 98% of all businesses in Saskatchewan and over 80% of job creation in this province coming from small business, those businesses drive a large part of our province's economic activity. Thankfully, this government recognizes the major contribution that small business owners make to this province. I read a column published in the Saskatoon Star-Phoenix on November 3rd of last year that resonated with me. It was written by John Gormley, and here are some of his thoughts. Quote, "For generations, the quietly proud and hardworking people of this province convinced ourselves that remarkable or even good things happen somewhere else. Over the past decade, as the world discovered Saskatchewan, we decided to change and ultimately leave tradition behind, from our political choices to a braver, more robust and confident view of our place. By any objective criteria, from dramatically reduced healthcare waiting lists to health, education and social spending that have exceeded historic growth rates, Saskatchewan is not in trouble. The staples of the economy, agriculture, oil, gas, potash, uranium and manufacturing, are cyclic, but increasing demand in a growing world and the value and quality that we add to our resources is improving Saskatchewan's prospects. Governments do not generally make things happen, but they can foster the environment and provide the catalyst for empowered citizens, investors and newcomers to create change and improvement." End quote. Mr. Speaker, that's what this Saskatchewan Party government has done over the last decade. Marilyn Braun-Poulin, the Vice President of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business for the Prairies, stated in a news release, quote, "We knew this would be another tough budget, but Saskatchewan entrepreneurs will be relieved that the provincial government's budget did not shock the economy. We welcome the government's plan to reduce the size of government through finding efficiencies and workforce attrition." End quote. Mr. Speaker, shortly after our new Premier was chosen, one of his first messages was, quote, "I'm optimistic about what's to come in Saskatchewan, and we must always remember that progress we have made in the last decade. After years of decline under the NDP, our province is now and can forever be the very best place to live, work and raise a family in Canada. We can chart our own course. We can chart our own future. This time in Saskatchewan right now belongs to us, the people of Saskatchewan. We will not let the NDP throw obstacles in our way, and we will continue to tell the Saskatchewan story around the world." Hear, hear. End quote. Mr. Speaker, I appreciated the words that our new Lieutenant Governor, Tom Malloy, spoke at his installation ceremony on March 21st, and I quote, "We are fortunate to live in a province that is as diverse as our country. I have always loved our provincial motto, for many people's strength. Our people are indeed our greatest strength. We are an innovative and tolerant people who want to live in peace and harmony with one another and with this magnificent terrain that we call home. We value equal rights and opportunities for all. We look for input from all of our citizens. Simply put, we are stronger when we work together." End quote. As citizens of this province, we all want the same things: a strong economy, opportunities for our young people, a good health system, a good education system, good highways, looking after the vulnerable. As one of my colleagues aptly describes, citizens want a job, a school, a hospital, and a road to get there. 3/4 of all government expenditures are in the ministries of health, education, and social services. We enjoy a good quality of life in this province, but our expenses in these human service areas continue to climb. This government is doing its very best to meet those increased needs. I acknowledge that there is more work to be done, more challenges to tackle, but we are keeping on track. and we are keeping on track without adding a federally imposed carbon tax.
Hear, hear.
The goal to balance the budget in 2019-20 ensures the long-term sustainability of the services and programs that people in this province value. Staying on track ensures that investments in infrastructure, including hospitals, highways and schools, continue this year and into the future. This government is making every effort to ensure that we are fiscally responsible and ensure that the investments that we have enjoyed over the past decade continue into the future. God bless our Saskatchewan. Mr. Speaker, I will be supporting the budget motion made by the Minister of Finance. I will not be supporting the amendment made by the member from Saskatoon-Nutana. Thank you.